Part 13, Chapter 31. Stan had brought down the lander within viewing distance of the humped-up mound that was the alien hive, which he was able to inspect closely through the view screen magnifier. Gil and Julie stood behind him as he manipulated the views. The hive was not only the largest non-natural feature on this planet, it was also larger than any natural feature Stan had yet seen. Even the mountains were no more than a few hundred meters in height. The hive, standing over 1,000 meters above the wind-swept plain, was huge, imposing, with a dark majesty. The winds scoured it, grinding it down, and there was constant activity from the aliens, who stood out as little black dots at this distance, building the hive up again, like ants repairing an anthill. Aliens, so soon. But, he reminded himself, he had been expecting them, hadn't he? "I hope you're taking note, Harry," Stan said, holding the cybernetic ant on his fingertip so it could get a good view. "I don't know if Harry is," Julie said, "but I sure am. I didn't know the hive would be so big, and I didn't know we'd run into the aliens so soon." "We've got the suppressors," Stan reminded her. "Sure," Julie said, "but are they reliable? It's pretty new technology." She sighed and looked out across the plain again. "That's one big hive." "This one could probably be classified as a super hive," said Gil. "It's far bigger than any other recorded in the literature of the aliens." "Why do you suppose?" Stan asked. "This is only a conjecture, of course, but it seems to me the odds against survival on this planet are so great that the aliens had to concentrate their forces, keep one big hive going rather than a lot of smaller ones. Saves us from having to make a lot of choices about which hive we plunder," Julie said. "Let's get to it, shall we?" Gil shook his head. "I advise you to wait until the storm activity on the surface has abated somewhat." Outside, through the plexiglass, they could see the raging gale that was the usual weather on this planet. The wind had whipped itself into new heights of frenzy. Sand and small stones were blown across the plain like exploding shrapnel. Larger rocks, swept from the low crags in the distance, tumbled across the plain like steamrollers gone berserk. Lightning forked and crashed in vivid streamers of electric blue. Beneath the lander, the ground shook and heaved in a nausea-inducing motion. Stan thought, "Volcanic activity. Just what we need." But he wasn't really worried. He had taken an ampule of Xenozip before leaving the Dolomite. He felt strong and confident, and the pain was gone. There was a burst of high-pitched static from the speaker, and then Captain Hoban's voice came on. "Dr. Myakovsky, are you reading me?" "Loud and clear, Captain," said Stan. "What do you have to report?" "We've spotted some debris in orbit near us," Hoban said. "Upon further inspection, I have found the wreck of a space freighter, just as you predicted. It's broken into several pieces, but there's a main section that could even contain human life. I doubt that'll be the case, however. The wreck looks like it's been there a long time. Do you have any identification on it yet? Stan asked. I've sent 2 men over to check it out, Hoban said. With a little luck, we'll pick up a flight recorder and find out what happened. Contact me as soon as you have it, Stan said. That could be very important information. I'm well aware of that, sir. I'll let you know first thing. Sir, ship's telemetry and remote survey equipment tells me you've put down the lander on a potentially unstable piece of ground. Everything around here is unstable, Stan said. Except for the rock outcropping the hive stands on. You wouldn't want me to put down right beside the hive, would you, Captain? Of course not, sir. I was just pointing out. I know. Stan snapped. He took a deep breath and tried to get control of himself. He was getting weird flashes now from the drug. It seemed to be taking him on an elevator ride. 1 second his mood was up, the next minute down. And too soon the pain was coming back. Take it easy, he told himself. Still, his breath sobbed in his throat as he said, I'm going to sign off now, Captain. We have to wait until the storm calms down before we can carry out the next step. I will use that time to get a little rest. Yes, sir. Over and out. Captain Hoban's face faded from the screen. Stan closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them again. Julie and Gil were both standing nearby, watching him. Stan felt a sudden shame at his own weakness and at the pain that was mounting in intensity throughout his throat and chest. At a moment like this, the only thing he could think about was the next ampule of Xenozip, nested in its padded box with the few others he had brought along. He shook his head irritably. It was too early for another ampule. He hadn't planned to take one just yet. He didn't know what it would do to him. But the pains were getting very bad, perhaps even affecting his judgment. I'll see you both later, Stan said. Even before they turned to leave the control room, Stan's fingers were at the table drawer where he kept the box of royal jelly ampules. Chapter 32. Julie and Gil returned to the after cabin. They were alone, except for Norbert, who stood silently against the curving wall like a futuristic basilisk, with Mac the dog asleep in his arms. Well, Gil, Julie said, what do you think of all of this? Gil looked up from his inspection of the armament they had brought. His expression was mild, quizzical. To what specifically do you refer? Stan, and his mad trip for royal jelly. This planet. Me. Gil took his time before answering. I do not ask myself that sort of question, Miss Lish. And if I did... Yes? If I did, my conclusions would have no value. I am not like you humans. I am a synthetic. How do you differ from real people? Gil looked disturbed, but managed to smile. No soul, for one thing, or so they say. And for another? No feelings. None at all, Gil. Yet you look like a man. Appearances can be deceiving. Don't you even find me attractive? Julie asked. Again, there was a long pause. Then Gil said, "There is an old saying of your people. Let sleeping dogs lie. I would advise that here." And why is that? Because synthetic people with feelings are something the human race wants no part of. That must be some other race, Julie said. Maybe I'm not part of it. I wouldn't mind it at all if you had feelings. You could tell me about yours and I'd tell you about mine. Our feelings would be nothing alike, Gil said. Are you so sure? Julie said. Sometimes I feel that I've been set to follow some program written by someone else. The Beautiful Thief, this one is called. And I sometimes wish I could just rewrite my programming. Do you ever wish that? Yes, Gil said. I know what you mean. Then he shook his head irritably. Excuse me, Miss Lish, but I must go finish checking out these weapons. Dr. Myakovsky is going to need us at any time. Do what you have to do, Julie said. She walked away, and Gil watched her go. Chapter 33. Starlight glittered on his space armor as Red Badger left the Dolomite's airlock and soared weightlessly towards the freighter wreck. Behind him came his backup man, Glint, illuminating the wreck with a powerful duolite beam. Badger gestured, though their destination was plain enough. The grey mass of the wreck, lying in several distinct parts, blocking the stars. Getting there was simple. Both men, on a signal from Badger, opened squirt cans that propelled them across the intervening space. Badger said into his helmet radio, "You reading me okay, Glint?" "Loud and clear," Glint said. They landed on the Hulk's largest section with a clank of magnetic boots. Badger's power wrench opened the airtight door that led into the ship. A lot of the freighter's metal covering had been peeled back by strong explosions. It was no trouble at all, once they were past the external armor, to slip in between two structural girders and make their way to the interior. The searchlight picked out the bodies of men, trapped in the sudden inrushing vacuum when the ship's side had been pierced. Exploded bodies lay across girders and floated unsupported in the zero gravity. Badger and Glint moved slowly, clumsy in their airtight space armor, their searchlights throwing brilliant swords of light through the gloom. A corpse hanging over a loop of high-pressure hose seemed to reach out and touch Badger's helmet, lightly, as if just saying hello. The red-headed spaceman laughed and pushed the thing aside. The body floated slowly across the shattered compartment, its arms held out loosely in front of it, like a swimmer doing the dead man's float. They reached the flight deck. Here there were more bodies, some terribly mangled by the pieces of flying machinery that had taken on the power of exploding shrapnel as the ship had come apart. Others looking strangely peaceful, as if they'd never known what hit them. Death had had a few busy moments here before the eternal silence of space had entombed them all. "Here's the control section," Glint said over the little space helmet radio that connected the two men. "Good enough," said Badger. "Let's find what we came for and get the hell out of here." They floated past an operations console that looked as good as new. The ship's name was still stenciled on the bulkhead, and the paint looked almost new. VALPARAISOQUEEN. Valparaiso Queen, Glint spelled out. "She won't be going Earthside no more." "Tough luck for her," Badger said, his tone flat and unemotional. "Here's what we're looking for." Under the command console was a panel with 3 fingertip-sized indentations. Badger pressed them in counterclockwise order, starting at 12 o'clock. The panel slid away. Badger directed Glint to shine the searchlight inside. Using wire cutters from the toolkit strapped to his waist, Badger cut the leads inside and withdrew a small heavy box made of a metallized plastic substance. "This is what we came for. Now, let's get the hell out of here."